What is going on, everybody? So I am on my third day of the Ignite Eviscerate Elementalist. Having a lot of fun playing through the build. I'm currently in yellow maps, working my way up to red tier maps. I'm actually in high yellow tier maps right now, and I'll have some PoBs up for day 2 and my current day 3 progress. So just to lay out some ground rules, or just so that you guys understand how I level alternate builds, is I don't twink out my character extremely hard right away. I'll usually have a whole bunch of items that I've saved up from other builds, but what I'll actually end up doing is, for the most part, at least through yellow tier maps, I will use items that I've either picked up off the ground or items that are considered extremely cheap in Trade League, just to kind of get a better picture of how does this build feel. That way in the future, if somebody were to ask me, hey, would you recommend to play this build on a league start scenario, I'd have more information on whether or not that build would do well in a given scenario. So those are the general ground rules that I usually do. If you didn't watch the first video on this build, I don't do very much twinking at all. I just like playing builds from the ground up, and then eventually over time, especially as I get into red tier maps, then maybe I'll dive into my stash or even use the league mechanic more. So let's talk about leveling real quick. I did make a video on leveling it Act 1 through maps. I did have some caveats in there, but there's one thing that I forgot to mention, and it was the skills that I used while leveling. I'm gonna open up PoB here and share the leveling PoB. This is once again gonna be in the description. Going through acts, I did use Crushing Fist because I wanted to take a look and see, Eviscerate versus Crushing Fist, do I need them? Crushing Fist is actually not extremely required to use while leveling. I just had it as another button to press. But Eviscerate by itself, with supports, is more than enough to actually get through the campaign. So you don't have to worry about using Crushing Fist. And in fact, it was a little bit awkward to use because the attack time was significantly longer than Eviscerate. So the Eviscerate has no attack time multiplier, but then Crushing Fist has a 70% attack speed multiplier. So that means it's 30% slower on your regular attack. So just keep that in mind, that Crushing Fist is not required, but if you do watch my first video, I was using Crushing Fist. But going up through yellow tier maps, I didn't do much with the build. I just leveled up, and I did have Ritual on my tree, so I did end up getting a lucky 5 link, and so I am using 5 links on here. Currently just using these links on the PoB. You can take a look for yourself. I did end up putting the Arcanist brand support setup in for typical Ignite builds. You'll usually see this on a lot of Ignite builds with the Arcanist brand, Flammability, Wave of Conviction, and Flame Surge. So that's a pretty standard setup for Ignite, and I still have the regular mana reservation, Flesh and Stone, Arctic, Armor, and also Tempest Shield. So I will be playing around with other auras, probably just trying to fit in Malevolence in there since it's a dot build. I don't think I would actually end up needing Flesh and Stone or Arctic Armor, but we'll have to play around with that as we progress through the build. And then the golems are the typical damage-based golems. So Chaos Golem for damage over time multiplier with some Chaos res. Lightning Golem for the increased attack cast speed. Not entirely important, just makes it nice to level or makes it nice to move around. Stone Golem for the defenses. You get some life regen and increased defenses. And then a Flame Golem for the damage and AoE. So it's got 28% increased damage and 20% increased AoE, which does apply to the Eviscerate. Basically makes your wave, the Eviscerate waves a little bit bigger. So that's the PoB for leveling up until yellow maps. And then, like I said, I am currently in high yellow tier maps. And so really the only items that I've changed around very much were the weapons. So leveling up, I used a weapon that looked like this. So taking a step back, Eviscerate has a very high attack damage multiplier. So as you can see, it's got 1,297 effectiveness of added damage at level 19. So that means that any sort of flat added damage on your weapon is going to be a huge damage increase to your Ignite. So if you take a look at your Shaper of Flames, all damage can ignite and hits will always ignite. So basically all of your damage that will apply to this Eviscerate will convert into an Ignite stack. So I had this weapon that I was using since level, I can't remember what level, but it, as you can see, the item level is 52. So somewhere around there, maybe Act 7 or Act 8-ish, picked this up and was using this type of weapon, just had 3 elemental damage types. And then going into maps, I was picking up axes and I was just identifying them, and this one had a lot of flat added damage as well, so ended up using this weapon. And then as I started getting into higher yellow tier maps, I did swap into Rebuke of the Vaal. So Rebuke of the Vaal is not a very common weapon to find. I generally find a couple of them every league, so I thought it was okay to swap into, but in an SSF environment, you might not get this weapon. Another weapon that you can think about using is the Diadius. This one has a pretty big flat added fire damage since it's going to be in your main hand. And then it also has the increased damage with Ignite inflicted on chilled enemies. So you might want to, if you use this weapon, you might want to consider swapping out of your aura setup. So maybe not use the Arctic armor and flesh and stone, but maybe put in skitterbots so that the enemies are always chilled, so that you can take advantage of that increased damage with Ignite. So I didn't end up using this Diadius weapon. It is very cheap. It should be very common. You'll usually get a bunch of these while leveling. In terms of skill gem setup, I'm still using the same skill gems that are in the entering a yellow tier map PoB, so no changes there. I will be swapping into the Berek's Respite that has Ignite Prolif on it. So this ring is actually very rare. So I will be swapping into this maybe once I get into high red tier maps, but I'm not using it right away. So this Ignite Prolif is actually different from the Ignite Proliferation support and also the Elemental Proliferation support. So the way that these proliferation supports work is when you kill an enemy, it drops a colored circle on the ground, and enemies have to walk over that colored circle in order to be inflicted with that ailment. So the difference with this Berek's is it will actually spread on death. So essentially this is kind of like an explode mod, if you kind of think of it that way. So when you kill an enemy, it then ignites a nearby enemy, which then can, once that enemy dies, it'll inflict another ignite on another enemy, and it'll just keep chaining ignites. The Ignite Proliferation and Elemental Proliferation gems do not do that. They just leave the puddle on the ground, and it won't prolif the ignite unless something walks over it. So essentially what that means is that the Berek's Respite increases your map clear speed substantially. I will be switching over to this once I get to high red tier maps. Just know that when you switch over to this Berek's ring, you want to replace your Ignite Proliferation support gem. These two will not play nice together. The Ignite Proliferation support ends up taking priority, and you will see more puddles on the ground than you will see the Berek's Respite Proliferation. So just keep that in mind. That is a pretty common pitfall when going into Ignite builds. So like I said, though, I am not using this ring just yet, but we will be eventually. Otherwise, all of the other items are pretty bad. All I've got are life and resist on all of my items. I don't have anything else. I'm still using my Wanderlust boots. I did swap out the shield. I ended up getting a pretty good shield drop from my other character that I just found in my stash, and I wanted to replace my shield out. So it just has a very high chance to block attack damage. I think right now I'm at 78% attack block and like 50 something spell block. Yeah, 78 attack block and then 57% spell block. So I need to get more spell block somewhere. There's spell block all over the place on the tree. There is spell block here. There's spell block here. So I should be able to cap out that spell block. I am thinking about going into here just so that I can get, there's 4, 8, and then 10% there, so that ends up being 18% spell block. Going into here, you'll get 8%, but you have the Mana Reservation Mastery that you can end up using. So lots of options. Haven't really min-maxed anything. Another option, which I am definitely not going to do until I'm at the very, very end game, is probably try to use this gem. So this gem will give me even more attack block plus chaos damage per endurance charge. The best place to put it is here, but I'm not going to take that support gem right away. That's going to be something that I'm going to use to min-max. The place is actually kind of weird. I'm not sure what's going on with Awakened PoE trade. It's saying 24 Divines up here, This is usually the PoE Ninja price, and then there's this merchant only price. Like I said, I don't play Trade League very much, so I'm not sure exactly what the price really is. Let me uncheck that. Yeah, not sure what the price is at all. So just keep that in mind. I'm not even going to be using this anyways, but it is an option if you have some problems with your block. In terms of grafts, I did change up my grafts a little bit. I'm using the tree as I am leveling, so I'm not using a bunch of graft items from my other character. So, for example, on my other characters, I do have a whole bunch of high-level womb gifts that I can use to craft items, but I am only using the womb gifts that I'm getting as I am leveling this character. So because of that, I have a Molten Zothgraft that I ended up getting. This one I'm just using it for the guard skill buff, and then I also got this Zothgraft for Call the Pyre. So this is how I'm getting covers enemies in Ash, and this graft is insane because it has a 1 second cooldown time. So that means that your covered in Ash is always up. That's what these flame tornadoes are. It's actually kind of nuts. I'm surprised that it has a 1 second cooldown. I feel like something like this should probably have like an 8 second cooldown for it to be balanced, because like covers enemies in Ash lasts for 4 seconds. So the fact that this is available essentially for free, where some people would end up using like Polaric or some other option to cover enemies in Ash, is kind of crazy. So just keep that in mind as you're leveling this. Try to get a flame color Zothgraft so you can have Call the Pyre to make sure that enemies are covered in Ash as much as possible. So other than that, other things that I changed about the build, just flasks, just getting armor flasks and stuff like that. So nothing too crazy. What I will be targeting going into red tier maps is swapping out my boots. Like I said, I'm using Wanderlust boots right now, so these will have to change. Apologies if you can hear my dog snoring in the background, but anyways, I think that's going to be it for the video anyways. I will talk to you guys later on the next build update video. We will be live on Twitch once again on Wednesday, so I will see you guys there. Peace out. Bye-bye.